Sources from outside Islam show that even in the early 8th and 9th century, the Quran was still being compiled. The standard Islamic narrative was distorted even as far back as the 9th century. Today we're going to take a look at Al-Kindi and what we call the apology of Al-Kindi. With me here, of course, in studios, as always, to unpack all of that for us is Dr. Jay Smith. Dr. Jay, thank you, as always, for all of this information. And we're thankful for Dr. Shoemaker also, who provided many of that to collaborate the things that you've been saying, we've been saying here in the channel as well. So it comes to us as no surprise that he is on board with this kind of information. Not that he's agreeing with me, you and I, but it seemed like his findings does corroborate everything we've been saying. So what about Al-Kindi, for instance, and his testimony concerning the creation of the Quran?
All right, we've already talked about Abraham from Tiberias, who had this dialogue with the emir in 820. So we're in the 9th century now. So we're a good 100 years after this compilation that was put together by Abd al-Malik and al-Hajjaj. And we call it the al-Malik al-Hajjaj paradigm, in contradistinction to the Uthmanic compilation, which we know earlier as the Nodekishwali paradigm. To corroborate that, you need outside corroboration, not within the tradition, because within the tradition would be biased, and more than that, it would also be controlled. And as we well know, the Abbasids destroyed anything that the Umayyads said or did. So the destruction is wholesale by the Abbasids. So we can't trust those traditions. We've said this for years. If it's from the 9th and 10th century, redacted back to the 7th century, we pretty much can throw it all out because it's all contrived. We know this about al-Bukhari, where he took 600,000 and whittled them down to 7,397, threw out 92%, 98%, and only retained 2%. This is quite normal. So that's why you need outside corroboration. In this case, Christians who are seeing this happen. So here we have Al-Kindi. Now, Al-Kindi is in the 9th century, and between 813 and 833 are the dates that he would be, that we're talking about. So sometime he writes his apology. And in this apology, he's very clear that the Quran is still being created as he speaks. He's watching it, and he's kind of chiding those, because he's there working in the courts of Mamun,
right?
Which is the Abbasid Caliph. So he's much like John of Damascus, a later day John of Damascus, another century later. He's in the courts there in Baghdad, and he's watching this happen. And he's making some critical remarks. Up till now, we've always thought that this guy's a wacko. Everybody has dismissed him because he says, how can you be saying these kind of things in the 9th century? Now we know why. And it's interesting, he knows about the Quran, so he talks about this Quran, refers to it. And then he also knows about Ali. He says this: Ali is alleged to have collected the Quran soon after Muhammad's death. You know, so he's talking they're now Muslims now. They call themselves Muslims. You know that Al-Hajjaj ibn Yusuf collected the codices, and he removed things from them. So he's saying, listen, Ali is not the only one. So he's talking about the Ali rendition, because this is the tradition that he's reading. This is the tradition he's hearing. You say it's Ali, you say it's Abu Bakr, you say it's Uthman, but you know it's really Al-Hajjaj who did this, is what he's saying. He also knows about the companion codices. And he says this: the tradition of an initial collection of leaves under Abu Bakr and other collections were also independently produced at this time, including those of Ubay ibn Ka'b and Abdullah ibn Masud. So he's talking about the codex that exists there in Damascus by Ubay ibn Ka'b, and he's also referring to one Ibn Masud. This is 813 to 833. So we're talking a little bit about 150 years after the fact. He's naming those. And then he talks about Al-Hajjaj. And he talks about the account, that the standard Islamic narrative, and he confronts it. And this is what he says: the canonical narrative proposed that Uthman created an authoritative version. That's your account, Muslims. Sending copies to Mecca, Medina, Syria, and Kufa. Yet, he says, only the Syrian copy of Uthman's Quran is said to have escaped destruction. Then there was the intervention by Al-Hajjaj ibn Yusuf, who left no copy that he did not acquire and removed many things from it. Bingo, that's what we're looking for. Now we understand what he's talking about. Shoemaker is correct. We've always been correct. And Shoemaker is underlining this. Said this guy has no agenda. He really doesn't have a need to say this, but he is observing this. He's there in the courts every moment. He says, you are the ones who are part. It's really Al-Hajjaj. Why haven't you named him? It's really Abdul Malik. Now, it is Al-Hajjaj who's doing the work, but it's under the auspices, under the authority of the Abdul Malik.
But it shows the political tension, obviously. That's why the Abbasides do not want to give him credit.
Absolutely, absolutely. So what is Shoemaker's conclusion? Well, he concludes this. Clearly, he says, Al-Kindi, like Abraham from Tiberias earlier, has drawn his information about the Quran from the Islamic tradition, and yet both writers showed that the collection of the Quran, at least as these Christian writers had learned of it, was largely the work of Al-Hajjaj, who made some substantial changes to the contents of the text and established its final form. And what these Christian authors were hearing from their Islamic contemporaries in the early 9th century clearly indicates that Al-Hajjaj did far more than merely add some diacritics and arrange the surahs in their current form. The Islamic traditional account is
like
11 changes.
Exactly.
That's all you hear, 11 changes. Nothing really significant, Mr. Smith. No, that's what your traditions say. That's what your Abbasid-controlled traditions say. Let's look and see what the historical account says. And let's let somebody who's outside of your tradition, but in the courts of Mahmud, let's hear what he has to say. He's saying that this is absolutely a wholesale changes, proving that he really, the Quran that we have today, would have to be his. Now, we're going to even change that. Shoemaker's going to go beyond that, because he's going to say later on, we haven't come to it yet, even later on, what Al-Hajjaj and Al-Malik was just the beginning of the Quran. The Quran continues to get changed from century to century. And that's, of course, what we're finding out now with the whole Qira'at and the Ahruf on top of that.
That's right. Well, I think if there is no other reason why people should get this book, at least they need to watch these videos and these shows, because it is very exciting. By every show, we are revealing yet a new evidence, yet a new information. Most of the time, these are evidence and information that not a whole lot of people have been privy to, or at least knew about, like the involvement of Al-Hajjaj and how hefty that involvement would have been. And I mean, Al-Hajjaj, we've always grown up learning that he has such a harsh reputation and he was a tough person. This is why I was always surprised, how can he dare to change the Quran? Well, we know why, because he was single-handedly the guy in charge, the general editor, if you wish, of the Quran, and he's the one who did the best he can to eliminate any other competing copies. Next time, I think we are going to talk now about Abdul Malik.
We're going to say, what did he actually do? What was it that he's been credited for, and what was going on with Al-Hajjaj, the Malik and the Al-Hajjaj paradigm?
Wonderful. Until next time, folks, this is Al-Fadi, and I pray that you are enjoying this show. God bless you. Thank you for watching this video. Be sure to like and subscribe to our channel, Sira International, and click on the bell so that you receive notifications whenever we publish a new video or go live. I would also like to appeal to you to consider becoming a Patreon patron by clicking the link right below. By doing so, you can give towards the production of these videos. There are also other options for you where you can give to our channel. I thank you from the bottom of my heart.